The Capitol Rotunda stood silent, its marble columns echoing the weight of history. Inside, the House Judiciary Committee convened, the air thick with anticipation. At the center of the room, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett prepared to confront the man who had long been a symbol of conservative media, Tucker Carlson. The cameras flashed as Carlson took his seat, his usual smirk replaced by a rare moment of unease. Across from him, Crockett exuded a calm intensity, her eyes locked on her adversary. The nation watched, knowing this would be no ordinary hearing. Chairman Thompson called the session to order, his voice steady but tinged with the gravity of the moment. We are here today to examine the role of media in shaping public discourse and the responsibilities of those who wield such influence. Crockett leaned forward, her voice cutting through the tension. Mr. Carlson, for years you've used your platform to spread division and deceit. Today, the truth will be laid bare. With a swift motion, she produced a series of text messages, their contents damning. Carlson's face paled as the room absorbed the implications. The messages revealed a pattern of racist and misogynistic remarks, a stark contrast to the persona he projected on air. The committee members shifted uncomfortably, some exchanging glances, others scribbling notes. The public gallery buzzed with murmurs, the weight of the revelation sinking in. Carlson attempted to regain control, his voice rising in indignation. These are private conversations, taken out of context. I am being unfairly targeted. But Crockett was unyielding. The context is clear, Mr. Carlson. These are your words, your beliefs, and they have no place in our national dialogue. The room fell silent once more, the gravity of the moment settling over everyone present. This was more than a political confrontation. It was a reckoning. The fallout began almost immediately. Within hours, conservative pundits and Carlson's allies launched a coordinated barrage, painting Jasmine Crockett as an overzealous politician on a personal vendetta. Headlines flashed across social media, accusing her of theatrics, questioning her competence, and framing her as the antagonist rather than the truth seeker. But Crockett refused to be cowed. In her office, the glow of computer screens cast long shadows. Staffers scrolled through threads filled with vitriol, yet she remained focused. "Let them talk," she said quietly, her jaw tight. "We didn't come here to play nice. We came here to reveal the truth." Her words hung in the room like a challenge, a declaration that public attacks would not divert her mission. Outside, protesters gathered in front of the Capitol. Some carried signs denouncing her, their chants echoing through the crisp morning air. Others, armed with their own banners of support, met them with equal fervor. The streets became a mirror of the nation's division, a clash of ideology that mirrored the courtroom drama inside. On live television, pundits dissected every gesture, every phrase. Analysts debated whether Crockett's approach was political savvy or a risky gamble. Tucker Carlson, meanwhile, appeared on a series of interviews, trying to regain the narrative. He leaned into his usual bravado, but there were cracks, hesitation, defensive gestures, and the subtle flicker of doubt in his eyes. For the first time, his unshakable confidence seemed vulnerable. Jasmine, aware of the media storm, addressed her supporters via a carefully crafted livestream. Her tone was calm, but the fire behind her words was unmistakable. "This isn't about me," she said. "It's about accountability. It's about the integrity of our information. If we let lies go unchallenged, we all lose." Her voice trembled for just a moment, betraying the weight of the personal toll, but she recovered instantly, her gaze unwavering. Comments poured in from across the country, messages of encouragement, solidarity, and gratitude. Behind the scenes, Crockett's legal team sifted through the fallout, documenting attacks, noting patterns of misinformation, and preparing for the inevitable courtroom confrontation. "Every word counts," she reminded them. "Every detail is part of the story. We are not just fighting for a headline, we are fighting for truth." As night fell over Washington, the city's skyline glittered, indifferent to the storm raging within its halls. Crockett walked alone for a few moments, her steps echoing on the marble floors. The weight of history, expectation, and responsibility pressed down, yet she stood resolute. Tonight, the battle was not just against a man or a network, it was against the erosion of trust in public discourse itself. And in the silence, the message was clear. The fight had only just begun. The storm of public scrutiny intensified, and the media frenzy reached a fever pitch. Overnight, leaked messages from Tucker Carlson dominated every cable news broadcast and social media platform. Clips of his on-air comments, juxtaposed with Jasmine Crockett's calm, authoritative responses, circulated endlessly. Every word, every inflection was analyzed, replayed, and dissected. The nation was watching, and the air felt electric with anticipation. Inside the halls of Congress, reporters jostled for position, cameras trained on Crockett as she prepared for her next public statement. The pressure was immense. Every gesture, every phrase would be scrutinized by millions, but Crockett moved with deliberate purpose, her composure unshaken. "This is about accountability," she told a reporter, her voice measured but firm. "It's not personal. It's about setting a standard for truth in media and ensuring that influence is wielded responsibly." Her eyes scanned the room, as if to silently challenge anyone who doubted her resolve. Outside, the public debate raged across every platform. Twitter feeds erupted with hashtags both praising and vilifying her actions. The polarization was tangible. Some hailed her as a fearless champion of justice. Others accused her of overstepping, branding her a political opportunist. Yet even in the vitriol, her message cut through. The call for transparency and integrity resonated with viewers across ideological lines. Carlson, meanwhile, retreated to his private quarters at Fox News. Advisors whispered strategies trying to contain the growing backlash. He appeared tense, pacing as the magnitude of the situation settled in. "We need to pivot," one producer urged. "The narrative is slipping." Carlson's usual confidence faltered under the weight of undeniable evidence and public scrutiny. His carefully curated persona was cracking, and the cracks were visible for the nation to see. Back on Capitol Hill, Crockett's team worked relentlessly. Each interview, each public statement was meticulously coordinated, balancing firmness with poise. She anticipated the counterattacks, responding with clarity that left little room for distortion. "We are not just exposing lies," she told her staff. "We are reclaiming the narrative of what the public deserves: honesty, accountability, and respect." Amid the chaos, personal pressures mounted. Crockett's office received messages filled with threats, both veiled and explicit, yet she refused to let fear dictate her actions. Late into the night, she reviewed the evidence again, each message, each clip, a reminder of the stakes. The fight was not abstract. It was a confrontation with powerful forces shaping the nation's perception of truth. By dawn, the city was alive with anticipation. Headlines screamed from every corner: "Crockett takes on Carlson," "Nation watches." The public's attention was riveted, and the momentum was building toward an inevitable confrontation. In quiet moments between briefings and media appearances, Crockett reflected on the larger picture. This was more than a clash of personalities. It was a defining moment in the struggle for ethical leadership, accountability, and the preservation of truth in a time of relentless misinformation. And with that, the stage was set. The debate, the reckoning, and the battle for the nation's conscience loomed just beyond the horizon. The glare of public attention brought both recognition and danger. Jasmine Crockett felt the weight of the nation's eyes on her, but the scrutiny carried a darker undertone. Threats, harassment, and intimidation seeped into her daily life. Late at night, the hum of her office lights was accompanied by the faint ping of notifications, some messages of support, but many more filled with vitriol and veiled threats. Each one was a reminder that the stakes were personal, not just political. Her family became an inadvertent front in the battle. Security measures were increased, schedules adjusted, and routines altered. Every trip outside became a calculated risk. Yet, amidst the tension, Crockett drew strength from those closest to her, the people who reminded her why she had chosen this path in the first place. "We are here for truth," she told her staff in the early morning hours, her voice steady but resolute. "Not for applause, not for headlines, but for what is right." The media frenzy did not relent. Cable networks replayed her exchanges with Carlson endlessly, dissecting her every word. Analysts debated the implications, some questioning whether Crockett's resolve could withstand the pressure, others marveling at her poise and clarity. Across the country, citizens engaged in heated debates, but one thing was clear: the narrative had shifted. The story was no longer about Carlson's platform. It was about accountability, courage, and moral clarity. In quiet moments between briefings and public statements, Crockett reflected on the historical struggle for justice that informed her work. The sacrifices of those who had fought for civil rights, the activists who had challenged entrenched power, and the voices silenced by oppression all resonated within her. Each reflection reinforced her commitment. She could not, and would not, allow fear or intimidation to derail the pursuit of truth. The personal toll, however, was undeniable. Exhaustion weighed heavily on her shoulders. Threatening messages, invasive media coverage, and the relentless public gaze created an almost suffocating atmosphere. Yet Crockett remained unbowed. She met with her legal team, meticulously reviewing evidence and testimony, ensuring every move was precise, deliberate, and unassailable. "We are not here for a show," she reminded them. "We are here for justice, and justice demands preparation, integrity, and courage." Outside, the city seemed oblivious to the quiet battles waged behind closed doors. Washington's streets glimmered in the evening light, indifferent to the tension inside Capitol walls. But inside, every decision carried weight. Every word could sway public opinion. Every action could influence the unfolding national reckoning. As the day drew to a close, Crockett paused in the hallway, looking out over the city skyline. Her reflection was visible in the glass, merging with the distant lights. She felt the enormity of the moment, the personal risks, and the collective responsibility she bore. And yet, she remained steadfast, knowing that in this fight for truth, courage was the only currency that mattered. The stage was set. The nation was watching. The opposition was poised, and the battle lines between deceit and accountability had never been clearer. The courtroom buzzed with quiet anticipation, a stark contrast to the chaos outside. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett entered with her legal team, each step measured, her posture radiating unshakable confidence. Today marked the first formal legal confrontation with Tucker Carlson and the network that had amplified his lies. Every eye in the room, from journalists to legal observers, tracked her movements, aware that the outcome could reshape public discourse. Crockett's attorney rose first, presenting a meticulously crafted case. The air was tense as documents were laid out on the polished oak table, screenshots, transcripts, and emails that chronicled a pattern of falsehoods. Each piece of evidence painted a damning portrait, revealing not just errors but intentional misrepresentation. "This is not merely a dispute over words," Crockett's attorney said. "This is a reckoning for the truth." Carlson, seated across the room, attempted to maintain his composure. His legal counsel whispered strategies, but even in hushed tones, cracks were visible. Sweat beaded at his temple as he glanced at the evidence, realizing that the weight of public scrutiny had now entered the courtroom. The meticulous preparation of Crockett's team left him with little room for deflection. As the hearing commenced, Crockett rose to address the judge, her voice both calm and commanding. "We are here to protect not only the reputation of a public servant, but the integrity of information that shapes our nation. False narratives cannot stand unchallenged, especially when they influence millions." Her words carried authority, but beneath the surface, there was a palpable undercurrent of emotion, a mixture of frustration, determination, and righteous indignation. Witnesses were called, each corroborating the patterns of misinformation and exposing inconsistencies in Carlson's previous statements. Members of the media, previously silent observers, now found themselves caught in the crossfire, their own credibility tested against Crockett's unyielding pursuit of truth. Every piece of testimony was strategically timed, designed to build the narrative incrementally, exposing deception while bolstering Crockett's credibility. Carlson attempted a rebuttal, his voice rising in urgency. "This is an attack on free speech," he declared, gesturing emphatically. But Crockett remained poised, interjecting at the right moments with precision. "Free speech does not protect falsehoods," she replied firmly. "It does not shield intentional harm or manipulation of public perception. Accountability is not censorship. It is responsibility." Outside the courtroom, the public followed live updates, their reactions intense and divided. Supporters of Crockett celebrated each strategic move, while opponents fumed at what they perceived as political theater. Yet, even amid the polarization, a critical shift was occurring. The focus had moved from mere accusation to a broader conversation about media ethics, accountability, and the role of truth in governance. By the end of the day, the courtroom felt heavier, charged with the sense that history was being witnessed in real time. Crockett's legal strategy had not only exposed lies but also set a precedent that no one, regardless of influence or platform, was above scrutiny. As she exited the courtroom, her eyes met those of reporters and staffers alike. There was resolve, yes, but also the quiet satisfaction that the first stones of accountability had been firmly laid. The stage was set for the nation's most anticipated televised confrontation. In a crowded studio, lights blazed and cameras clicked, capturing every detail for a live audience numbering in the millions. Jasmine Crockett entered with deliberate poise, her eyes scanning the room, absorbing the weight of history and expectation. Across from her, Tucker Carlson exuded his usual bravado, but there was an unmistakable tension beneath the surface, a recognition that today's exchange would define the narrative for weeks, if not months. The moderator opened the debate, his tone formal, attempting neutrality, but the energy in the room was electric. Tonight, we examine not only statements made on air, but the broader responsibility of media figures in shaping public discourse, he said. The cameras panned across the audience, capturing murmurs of anticipation and the slight tightening of shoulders among the panelists. Crockett leaned forward, her voice calm but penetrating. For too long, misinformation has been treated as entertainment, she said. The falsehoods propagated by Mr. Carlson have consequences, real consequences for real people. We are here to examine those consequences and demand accountability. Every word landed with precision, her cadence measured to emphasize both logic and moral urgency. Carlson's rebuttal was immediate, a mixture of indignation and calculated theatrics. "These allegations are baseless," he exclaimed, gesturing sharply. "This is a politically motivated attack meant to silence a conservative voice." Yet his intensity only highlighted the contrast between his reactive posture and Crockett's controlled presence. The debate escalated as Crockett presented concrete evidence, quoting messages, referencing transcripts, and outlining discrepancies between Carlson's public statements and private communications. "Your words, Mr. Carlson, do not exist in a vacuum," she said, her gaze unwavering. "They influence public opinion, they shape policy discourse, and they have a measurable impact on trust in our institutions." Audience reactions shifted visibly. Supporters nodded, some murmuring in agreement, while detractors squirmed under the weight of undeniable evidence. Each exchange was a carefully choreographed dance of truth versus deflection, intellect versus theatrics, moral clarity versus performative indignation. At one point, Carlson attempted to pivot, introducing unrelated controversies to distract from the issue at hand. Crockett, sensing the misdirection, responded sharply, "We are not here to debate distractions. We are here to hold media accountable. Deflecting from the facts does not negate responsibility." The audience responded audibly, a mixture of applause and murmurs that underscored the emotional resonance of her words. By the conclusion of the debate, the studio felt charged with the weight of accountability. Crockett's performance had been surgical, her arguments relentless yet measured. She had exposed the cracks in Carlson's narrative while maintaining moral authority. For millions watching, the message was clear. Truth and integrity were not negotiable, and deception, even from the powerful, would be confronted. As the cameras cut and the studio lights dimmed, Crockett exhaled, a quiet moment of reflection amidst the adrenaline. The battle was far from over, but tonight she had delivered a defining blow. The day began with a ripple that quickly became a wave. A whistleblower from within Fox News had come forward, providing corroborating evidence that lent weight to every claim Crockett had made. The documents, emails, and internal communications painted a troubling picture of deliberate misinformation, editorial bias, and attempts to manipulate public perception. Suddenly, what had been an isolated confrontation between a congresswoman and a media personality became a national reckoning. Inside her office, Crockett reviewed the whistleblower materials with her team. Each revelation deepened the narrative she had been constructing, providing undeniable proof that the patterns of deceit were systemic, not merely incidental. "This changes everything," one aide whispered. Crockett nodded, her face unreadable, but her mind raced. The stakes had grown exponentially. Now the fight was not just against Carlson, it was against an entire network that had enabled falsehoods to flourish unchecked. The media response was immediate and intense. Headlines declared the story a turning point. Whistleblower confirms patterns of deception at Fox News. Crockett's claims corroborated by insider documents. Social media erupted with discussions, debates, and trending hashtags. Analysts from across the ideological spectrum were forced to confront the mounting evidence, and public sentiment began to shift perceptibly. Even Carlson's staunch supporters were grappling with the credibility of the revelations. The political implications were equally profound. Lawmakers began to weigh in, calling for investigations and accountability measures. Crockett found herself at the center of a national dialogue about media ethics, truth, and responsibility. She fielded interviews and panel discussions with precision, her voice steady even as the momentum threatened to overwhelm. "We are not here to destroy careers for vengeance," she emphasized. "We are here to restore integrity and ensure that public trust is honored, not exploited." Behind the scenes, tension mounted within Fox News. Executives scrambled to contain the fallout, attempting to discredit the whistleblower and control the narrative. Carlson's carefully maintained public image began to unravel as more documents emerged, detailing not just personal misconduct, but editorial strategies designed to mislead viewers. For the first time, his invincibility seemed fragile. Crockett remained relentless, balancing strategy with moral clarity. Each public statement, each interview, was crafted to highlight the truth while maintaining the ethical high ground. She was aware that the eyes of the nation were upon her, not just her supporters, but detractors, journalists, and policymakers. Every word mattered. By evening, the story dominated cable news and social media alike. The narrative had shifted decisively in her favor. Public opinion, once divided sharply, now tilted toward accountability, reinforcing Crockett's position as both a moral and political leader. In quiet moments, she reflected on the long arc of justice she was navigating, the personal cost, the public scrutiny, and the profound responsibility of challenging entrenched power. The stage was now set for the next act, the reckoning in Congress. The whistleblower had changed the game, and the nation would soon witness the full force of Crockett's unyielding pursuit of truth. The day of the congressional hearing arrived like a storm. The room was packed, every seat occupied by reporters, legal experts, and congressional staffers, all acutely aware of the gravity of the moment. Cameras flashed relentlessly, capturing every gesture, every nervous shift of Tucker Carlson as he entered. His usual air of confidence was replaced by a tight-lipped caution, the weight of public expectation pressing heavily on him. Jasmine Crockett entered shortly after, exuding calm authority. Her presence filled the chamber with quiet energy. She carried the weight of truth, evidence, and public expectation. Whispers rippled through the audience, her unwavering composure and measured stride signaling the seriousness of the confrontation to come. The chairman called the hearing to order, the gavel echoing like a drumbeat signaling a national reckoning. Crockett rose, her voice steady, cutting through the low hum of murmurs. "We are here to examine not just individual statements, but the broader consequences of repeated falsehoods propagated by those with influence over millions. Accountability is not optional, it is imperative." Carlson's testimony began defensively. He repeated talking points crafted for public perception, framing himself as a victim of politically motivated attacks. Yet each time he deflected, Crockett countered with evidence that left little room for evasion. Screenshots, internal emails, and whistleblower documents detailing patterns of deliberate misrepresentation. Her voice did not rise, but each word carried weight, precision, and moral authority. The room grew tense. Congressional members leaned forward, some scribbling notes, others exchanging silent glances. The public gallery held its breath as the confrontation unfolded, each exchange a tightrope walk between rhetoric and truth. "Mr. Carlson," Crockett said, her eyes locking onto his, "these are not matters of opinion. These are documented actions, strategies designed to mislead the public. How do you justify them?" Carlson faltered for the first time. His responses became clipped, defensive, and occasionally contradictory. He attempted to pivot, introducing tangential arguments, But Crockett anticipated each maneuver, redirecting the focus with surgical precision. "Diversions do not negate responsibility," she stated. "Truth is not negotiable, and influence carries consequences." The public reaction was immediate and intense. News feeds updated in real time, Twitter threads erupted, and pundits scrambled to interpret each moment. Even Carlson's allies struggled to maintain the narrative, as the evidence presented was undeniable. Attention in the room mirrored the nation outside, divided yet riveted, witnessing accountability unfold in real time. By the conclusion of the testimony, Carlson's defenses had largely crumbled. Crockett's strategy was flawless. She had maintained moral authority while systematically exposing falsehoods. Exiting the chamber, she was met with quiet nods of acknowledgement from colleagues and staffers alike. She had not only confronted a powerful adversary, but had reshaped the conversation about media ethics and public responsibility. As the sun set over Washington, the city's lights reflected a nation on the cusp of change. Crockett understood the broader significance. This was not just a personal victory, it was a moment that would reverberate across media, politics, and public trust. The reckoning had begun, and the nation had witnessed the power of unwavering truth. The aftermath of the congressional hearing rippled across the nation like shockwaves. News outlets replayed every exchange between Jasmine Crockett and Tucker Carlson, dissecting each moment for hours on end. Headlines declared a turning point. Crockett holds Carlson accountable. Truth triumphs in high-stakes media showdown. Social media was ablaze with debate, commentary, and analysis, reflecting a nation captivated by both spectacle and substance. In the halls of power, politicians and media executives scrambled to recalibrate their strategies. Fox News faced intense scrutiny from advertisers and shareholders alike, many demanding accountability and transparency. Carlson's carefully cultivated image had suffered significant damage. Even loyal supporters began questioning the credibility of the narrative he had presented for years. Every public statement he issued now carried the weight of prior contradictions. Crockett, meanwhile, moved with deliberate focus. Interviews, press conferences, and public appearances were executed with precision, each statement reinforcing her commitment to truth and ethical responsibility. "This isn't about political points," she told a packed press briefing. "It's about integrity, accountability, and the role of those with influence over public perception. Lies and manipulation have real consequences." Her words resonated with citizens across the political spectrum, reaffirming her moral authority while elevating the national conversation about media ethics. Back in her office, Crockett reviewed the latest reports of advertiser pullouts and internal Fox News memos acknowledging the crisis. Each piece of evidence reinforced the impact of her efforts, yet she remained measured. "The work is not over," she reminded her team. "We have struck a blow, but lasting change requires vigilance, persistence, and public awareness." The personal dimension of the aftermath was equally profound. Crockett received messages of gratitude from citizens, activists, and civil rights organizations. Supporters celebrated her courage, noting that she had exposed not only an individual wrongdoing, but systemic issues within media institutions. Yet, alongside this recognition came exhaustion. Weeks of relentless confrontation, scrutiny, and strategic maneuvering had taken their toll. She navigated it with quiet determination, drawing strength from the knowledge that her actions had a tangible, positive impact. Across the country, the public debate evolved. Town halls, editorial panels, and academic discussions examined the broader implications of the hearing. Questions about accountability, ethics, and responsibility dominated discourse. Crockett had not only challenged a media personality, she had catalyzed a nationwide conversation about the role of truth in democracy, inspiring citizens and journalists alike to reconsider their assumptions and standards. By the end of the week, the narrative had shifted decisively. Tucker Carlson's career faced undeniable consequences, while Crockett's stature as a fearless advocate for truth and justice was firmly established. The nation had witnessed a rare convergence of moral clarity, political strategy, and public accountability, a moment that would be studied and remembered for years. As she looked out over the city from her office, Crockett felt the weight of the battle and the promise of progress. The fight for truth was ongoing, but tonight, The balance had tilted toward accountability, and the nation had seen the power of unwavering resolve. Years had passed since the stormy days of hearings, debates, and whistleblower revelations, yet the echoes of that national reckoning remained vivid. Jasmine Crockett, now a recognized voice for accountability and ethical leadership, reflected on how one confrontation had reshaped both her career and the broader landscape of American media. The Capitol skyline stretched before her, a constant reminder of the institutions she had fought to protect, and of the weight that truth carries in a democracy. Crockett's work had left an indelible mark. Legal reforms inspired by the hearings had increased transparency and responsibility for media organizations. Networks were now required to implement stricter fact-checking protocols, and internal oversight had become more robust. What had begun as a personal mission to expose one individual's deception had rippled outward, catalyzing systemic change. Change starts with courage, she often said, sharing her experience with students, journalists, and activists. One person willing to confront falsehood can shift the trajectory of a nation. Her influence extended beyond policy. Crockett authored a book on media ethics, combining personal narrative, legal insight, and practical guidance for navigating an increasingly complex information landscape. Schools and universities cited her work in courses on journalism, ethics, and political communication. Students and young activists sought her mentorship, inspired by her blend of moral clarity, strategic precision, and unflinching courage in the face of powerful opposition. Yet even as her professional legacy grew, Crockett remained grounded. She frequently visited communities affected by disinformation campaigns, speaking with ordinary citizens about the consequences of manipulated narratives and the importance of critical engagement. Her message was consistent. Accountability is a collective responsibility, and democracy thrives when citizens demand integrity from those with influence. Crockett's confrontation with Tucker Carlson remained emblematic of her approach, a fusion of moral conviction, legal acumen, and unshakable composure. Documentaries, podcasts, and retrospectives revisited the hearings, highlighting her strategic brilliance and ethical fortitude. For many, she became the standard-bearer of principled leadership, a figure who demonstrated that power must always be tempered by responsibility. Even in quieter moments, Crockett reflected on the personal cost. Threats, scrutiny, and relentless public attention had exacted their toll, but the sacrifices were outweighed by the knowledge that she had helped redirect the course of public discourse. Her determination had not only exposed lies, but had inspired a broader commitment to truth, ethics, and justice across political and cultural divides. As she addressed a gathering of young journalists and civic leaders in a sunlit hall, Crockett's voice carried both authority and warmth. The work of accountability is never finished, she told them, but courage, integrity, and vigilance create a legacy that endures beyond any single headline or hearing. The truth is not just a weapon, it is the foundation of a free and just society. The audience listened, rapt, aware that the woman before them had transformed the very way the nation viewed truth, media, and accountability. Jasmine Crockett's story was no longer just about a confrontation with one man. It had become a defining chapter in the ongoing fight for ethical leadership, a testament to the enduring power of integrity, courage, and unwavering commitment to justice.